to help it flush out the rebels. The American and Western media are making buzz about it, but the real truth is that the main process is in Doha. So it's the primary conflict that is provoking the conflict, interstate conflict.
South Africa's Police Minister Senzo Mchunu has admitted that he did not work out any detailed plan when he ordered the immediate disbandment of the Political Killings Task Team. The Police Minister has returned to the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry in Pretoria. During cross-examination yesterday, the Commission's chairperson, retired Constitutional Court Justice Mbuyiseli Madlanga, grilled Mchunu about his decision to disband the Political Killings Task Team in the KwaZulu-Natal province. Many witnesses have accused Mchunu of not consulting stakeholders before ordering the disbandment of the task team. Advocate Mahlape Sillo is leading Mchunu's cross-examination at the Commission in Pretoria.
So I didn't necessarily work out any detail at the time when I wrote the letter beyond those kinds of engagements. But I had in mind engagements going forward.
2 weeks after one of Nigeria's worst school kidnappings, parents of more than 250 missing children are desperate for news in what they see as a slow response from authorities. The Christian Association of Nigeria said 303 children and 12 school staff were kidnapped by gunmen at St. Mary's Catholic Boarding School in Babiri, a hamlet in the state of Niger. 50 pupils managed to escape in the following hours, but since then there has been no news on the whereabouts or conditions of the other 265 children, some as young as 6, and the missing school staff. It is one of the worst kidnappings since the 2014 abduction of 276 schoolgirls from Boko Haram in Chibok. The U.S. will provide more than $1.6 billion to Kenya's health system under a new 5-year agreement signed yesterday. This is the first such agreement reached under the Trump administration's overhaul of foreign aid. The administration in September announced a new America First global health strategy that calls for poorer nations to play a bigger role in fighting HIV, AIDS, malaria, tuberculosis and polio in their countries and eventually transition from aid to self-reliance. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Kenyan President William Ruto signed an agreement on the bilateral compact in which Kenya pledged to increase its own health spending by $850 million over the 5 years. And finally, there is heightened scrutiny in the U.S. over the military's announcement that it has conducted another strike on a boat suspected of carrying illegal drugs in the Eastern Pacific, killing 4 men. Earlier, U.S. military commanders briefed lawmakers on a double strike on a boat in September after questions were raised about the legality of such attacks. The BBC's Peter Bose has the story.
The US military said the latest attack occurred after intelligence confirmed that the vessel was carrying illegal narcotics along a known narco-trafficking route. The statement says the strike was carried out at the direction of the US Defence Secretary, Pete Hegseth. Earlier, lawmakers were shown video of a September attack involving 2 strikes on a boat that killed 2 stranded sailors. The Democratic Senator Jack Reed said he was deeply disturbed by what he'd seen and called for the video to be released to the public.
For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Cholani Tulo Wepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
The world, in our sports update, the world is waiting with bated breath for the FIFA World Cup draw tonight. And South Africa's athletics president is going around the country searching for talent. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
This is Africa Update, your pulse to the continent. Stories shaping nations and voices driving change. Stay informed, stay connected, right here on Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
It is 12:06 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on DSTV's audio bouquet channel 802, OpenView channel 628, and on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as on the SABC Plus app, available on the Apple and Google Play stores. Join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook at Channel Africa, you can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 at 406 9126 hashtag Africa Update, and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +2711 714 4459. Well, today on hashtag Africa Update, ask frustration mounting in Nigeria as parents of the kidnapped school children in Niger State accuse the authorities of not doing enough to bring their children home. Authorities there have asked parents to be patient. Now, our question to you today is, do you believe the authorities are dragging their feet? And how much more patience should parents worrying about their children have? Share your thoughts and your views on all our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 at 406 9126 hashtag Africa Update Us.
Annie Kalonji sur Channel Africa.
Comment est-ce que les militants et sympathisants du parti Les Transformateurs ont-ils réagi face à la condamnation de Succès Masra?
La condamnation de Succès Masra ne nous a pas surpris et les militants transformateurs ont été bouleversés et indignés étant donné que le verdict est un verdict lourd, illégal, injuste et donc face à la répression dans laquelle le peuple tchadien est confronté, les militants transformateurs se sont résignés de ne pouvoir pas sortir manifester. Et donc, c'est une situation totalement absurde pour un pays. Et aujourd'hui, nous célébrons le 11 août, fête de l'indépendance. On pensait que le verdict allait être plus ou moins clément, mais le verdict est sévère.
Annie Kalonji, tous les dimanches sur Mix Vibration.
Stay tuned to Channel Africa. Stream us on our new and updated website, channelafrica.co.za. Are you fluent in French, Chinyanja, Portuguese, and Kiswahili? Are you passionate about radio? And are you looking to work in South Africa? Do you have papers that qualify you to work in South Africa? In that case, we might have an opportunity for you to work for Channel Africa. Send us your CV and demo at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Remember, if you don't hear from us within 14 days, it means you have not made it or you have not been selected. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
It is 12:09 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Our parents of school children who were kidnapped in Nigeria 2 weeks ago are accusing the authorities of dragging their feet to find their children. The Christian Association of Nigeria says 303 children and 12 school staff were kidnapped by gunmen at St. Mary's Catholic Boarding School in the state of Niger. 50 pupils managed to escape in the following hours, but since then, there has been no news on the whereabouts or conditions of the other children, some as young as 6, and the missing school staff. Our parents claim they are being told to exercise patience. Now, to chat further about this, we are joined on the line by Frank Tiete, a lawyer based in Abuja and a human rights activist. Frank, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon, and my pleasure.
Frank, how much patience can, parents exercise when their children are missing, and especially if there's a child as young as 6 years old who is among the group of girls and the teachers?
Well, asking for patience is asking for too much from these parents who are actually going through a tremendous grief at this time. Grief not because of their own fault, but because of a state that has failed to protect its own. It is the least of things to ask for at this time, because what the parents need and what they require is the assurance that their children will be brought home in the immediate and not going into weeks now without much action or assurances coming from the government. So it's actually very devastating to the parents when the rhetoric from government is that of doing nothing but simply asking them to be patient. Unfortunately, things are beginning to return to normal because I speak right here from Abuja, and I see that the tone of governance is not that of with any sense of emergency with regards to restoring or rescuing these kidnapped children. So it's quite unfortunate. And this is not happening in vacuum, because right from the very first time with the children, the Chibok girls were kidnapped in 2014, it shows sometimes how much government can be very helpless on its own, not to talk about citizens who are actually the victims of this situation.
Now, Frank, is it a case of government or the authorities doing nothing, or just a situation of not knowing what to do?
I think it's first, the government may not be doing much to protect these innocent children in terms of preventing the occurrence of this kind of kidnapping situation that is so embarrassing. And then with regards to rescuing these children, it's been apparent that government doesn't really know what to do. And it is also unwilling to ask for help, especially help from the United States or from any other country that is able to provide some form of surveillance. But you see, the interesting thing is that local authorities, religious leaders in those areas have a way of getting in contact with these kidnappers, and in expectation that when they talk, when there is negotiation, Nigeria is not yet advanced to a point where it can declare that it does not negotiate with terrorists. It does negotiate with terrorists and kidnappers to a point where we've recorded some measure of successes in the rescue of the children that were kidnapped earlier, particularly the 24 schoolgirls in Kebbi State. Now, what it means is that government is simply being pretentious by not recognizing that there are persons that it could talk to that indeed will get in touch with the kidnappers and somehow negotiate the release of these children. But the government is not doing that. I think we should say it more pointedly and ask the government. It's not a matter of force here. It's a matter of, government, eating the humble pie by recognizing that it could not prevent this kidnapping. It's to a large extent helpless at this time in rescuing these children in the hands of the kidnappers. Yeah. Then what is open to it is to negotiate. It must now begin to take individuals like Sheikh Gumi, who claims some measure of sympathy for these bandits and kidnappers, to come into the scheme and begin to discuss on a more serious terms, carrying the parents along. Yes. That's when the parents will be assured that something is being done.
Well, Frank, we'll have to leave it there for today. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you.
That is Frank Tete, a lawyer based in Abuja and a human rights activist, joining us on the line.
Ahoy, matey!
Captain here to help, right, boys?
Set sail with us on a digital voyage like no other. Channel Africa has a treasure trove of awesomeness. That is our website and social media pages.
Tell me, why are you here?
We want you to be part of our adventure.
The winds are changing, Captain. And this time...
Imagine a world where curiosity knows no bounds, where entertainment meets enlightenment, and where every click leads to the African perspective. Visit us on our website, www.channelafrica.co.za, or follow us on Instagram or on X at Channel Africa One. Go on, like us on Facebook at Channel Africa One. So, spread the word. Tell a friend that Channel Africa's online variety is what they need on the web. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa Update on Channel Africa.
Tunisian police have arrested a top opposition figure in the latest sign of an escalating crackdown on political dissent by President Kais Saied. Police arrested 82-year-old Najib Chebi to enforce a 12-year jail term on a conviction for conspiracy. And to tell us more, we are joined on the line by a professor at Algiers University, that's Laid Zakhlami. Prof, good afternoon and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon to you. Thank you for having me on your program.
Now, Prof, Najib Chebi is no newcomer to politics in Tunisia. He's been through the presidencies of Habib Bourguiba and Zine El Abidine Ben Ali. Why is his arrest so important for President Saied?
Well, frankly speaking, he is, after all, Mr. Ahmed Najib Chebi. He is an old politician. He has been in political sphere in Tunisia for the last 40 years or so. So he's well known, and he has been critical to the system of the system in Tunisia since the end of, in 2011, the end of Ben Ali regime. Today, he is the president of the National Salvation Front, and he has been so many times, submitting, standing for election, and today he was arrested on, as you said, on conspiracy case.
This conspiracy case, when did it all come about? And you know, last week the appeals court handed down jail terms to up to 45 years to dozens of opposition leaders, business figures and lawyers. What is fueling these political unrests? I beg your pardon, political unrest.
Yes, I think we can see for the last couple of months and weeks a sweeping campaign to arrest so many political, I do say, opposition, those who are opposed to to Kais Saied, and there is what they call a campaign of political extermination of opposition. And while the president himself said we are trying to cleanse what he calls the traitor. He considers those who are opposed to him as traitor, and they don't, of course, defend the right of Tunisia. We have also another resolution about a few days ago by the European Union and particularly the Parliament, which criticized Kais Saied's decision to against all opposition. And of course, the response of the president of Tunisia was he considered the resolution as a blatant interference, and he utterly refused that. So, frankly speaking, the political climate in Tunisia is not so clear and is not even democratic, and there are a lot of confusion. Besides that, we have some economic and social problems facing Tunisian people in their everyday life.
Now, you're speaking of what's the right word to use in terms of the opponents being persecuted for their stance against President Saied. There are two opposition leaders, Chaima Issa and opposition lawyer Ayachi Hamami. They've announced an open-ended hunger strike demanding their release. Is this likely to spark another uprising as that was seen in 2011?
Well, frankly speaking, from outside Tunisia, and as you knew, I am based in Algiers. For us, Tunisia is a small country. I mean, we have and with so many restricted resources when it comes to economics or industry and so forth. And since the removal of President Ben Ali 2011, Tunisia has not been in a very positive position. opposition, has not resumed, I would say, political stability. So, and of course, when we look at the president, the presidency of Qais Said, he has not even he has not done better than the other previous president.
Yeah.
But he's trying to keep. But I think, although it looks as from outside, it's an internal issues, because we haven't seen, as you said, protest at wide, large range. Maybe it looks as this is a problem between the presidency and the political opposition, while the civil society, while the whole society are kept, I would say, sidelined.
Yeah.
And there is not a huge, as we see, a huge opposition, a huge social protest in the street. Maybe those who are opposed to him. That's my observation, without being involved in one side or the other.
Yes. Well, Prof, we'll have to leave it there for today. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you.
That was Professor at Algiers University, Laid Zakhlami, joining us on the line.
Channel Africa is evolving, and so are you. Stay connected wherever you are with our brand new website and mobile app. Stream your favorite shows, catch up on African news, culture, and conversations, all at your fingertips.
Africa is just a tap away.
Your world, your stories, now on the go.
Stay connected wherever you are.
Visit channelafrica.co.za or download the Channel Africa app today. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Communities across South Africa are marking the 4th annual International Khoi Language Week, running from the 1st to the 6th of December. Activists, artists, educators and young people have issued a nationwide call to honor, revive and protect Khoi Khwab, the Khoi language, once widely spoken across large parts of Southern Africa. And for more, we are joined by Toroga Denver from Munai Nai Collective. Toroga, good afternoon and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Yes, thank you. Gangans, thank you so much. I just said good afternoon in the Khoi language, and Gangans for having me this afternoon.
Now, what concrete policy changes are Khoi Language Week organizers demanding from national and provincial governments this year and the next year?
Yeah, we really want an historical acknowledgement of the genocide of the Khoi language on the Khoi peoples in South Africa. For many years, for centuries, it was one of the most dominant languages. It was spoken here in all parts of South Africa, and today it's hardly heard. It's only spoken in parts of the Northern Cape. And there needs to be an historical acknowledgement of the genocide and funding made available to repair the tongue, because we can't just move on as a country when an origin mother tongue of this land is almost invisible, yet it is a language that informed almost all languages in South Africa. And part of it is then for the historical acknowledgement, but also for funding to be made available for such activities to be supported. But also we really want, and it's been 30 years since the democracy, 1994, post-1994, that we've asked for our language to be made an official language and to be introduced in schools, and nothing really has happened. So these are some of the concrete policy changes that we are demanding from government and institutions in South Africa.
Now, Khoi Khwab is a cluster of dialects, the Nama, Damara, etc., rather than a single standardized language. How are activists navigating the challenge of, firstly, dialectal diversity and historical fragmentation when creating shared teaching materials, whether it's dictionaries and the potential written standard during this revival process? And just for interest's sake, do we have enough educators who speak and understand the language and the different dialects?
Yeah, dialects we do celebrate because, there wasn't just one corporate group. there were different Khoikhoi groups all over South Africa. My mother, for instance, was part of the Inkwa group in Graafrenet, which we today know as Graafrenet in the Eastern Cape. When Jan Sandri became in 1652, he met the Koronai Kona in Paarl, which we know today as Paarl, which also has a Khoikhoi name, Komnam. They were the Kokokwa. In Swellendam, they were the Hesekwa. So these dialectical differences have only ever been there, but there was one standard Khoikhoi, which was then spoken by all of these different groups, including the Nama in the Northern Cape and in Namibia. So today we are celebrating those differences, knowing that there is one standard Khoikhoi language that still exists. And with all languages, even with Afrikaans today, there's a standard Afrikaans, but there's different types of Afrikaans that's spoken on the Cape Flats, in Stellenbosch, in Pretoria. So for us, it's about acknowledging that there is a central standard language, but we celebrate the differences in how the language is spoken and how certain new words are given meanings by different communities. What I want to say, in South Africa, we do have a lack of teachers and educators who are able to teach the language. And that, again, is very systemic because in Namibia, the Khoikhoi language is standardized. There are resources available. It is introduced and it's part of the school curriculum. And, for a country such as South Africa, who was very much intertwined with Namibia for more than 90 years, it shouldn't be such a problem to get those resources and to get those educators to teach the language in South Africa, whether it is in secondary level or at university level. And yet we still find that resistance. And part of the Khoikhoi language is to say that we as a Khoikhoi people reclaiming our language and culture, that we are worthy and we deserve to be taught in our ancestral mother tongue and to actually have our kids, become that next generation who are proudly African. Because now today we sit with a language called Afrikaans, which is a Dutch dialect, and it alienates us from our fellow Africans because, yes, it's the only language with the word Africa in it, but it's understood and written and read in the Netherlands, in Belgium. That's not an African tongue, because no African tongue is spoken in Europe. So part of our language work and the Khoikhoi language, we can say that we want to reclaim our language because it's part of our African identity and our connection to our fellow Africans.
Now, going back in time, colonial records and early missionaries used highly pejorative orthography and grammar descriptions that distorted Khoikhoi Hoab's complex click, phonology and structure. How are contemporary Khoikhoi linguists and speakers reclaiming and correcting the linguistic archive to restore dignity to the language itself?
Yeah, it's for us now, it's about recognizing that the language was recorded by racist, colonial, straight, heterosexual Christian men, and that they enforced their toxic colonial beliefs onto our language. And just an example again, Khoikhoi is a language that centers our women. It's a language that celebrated our women because Khoikhoi society was fundamentally a matrilineal society. And yet some words you discover that they somehow center the man, the patriarchy. And I want to make an example. The other night I was going past and I saw this moon shining. And today you will read in the Khoikhoi dictionary, you will see the moon has got the name called Khab. And when you call it Khab, you basically say that the moon is a man. But we also know from old colonial records that in Khoikhoi, certain terms and objects that reflect the female, the full rounded body, the body that looks as if it can give birth, that is always reflected as a she. So for me, when I look at the moon now, I don't call it a club. I don't refer to it as a he. I refer to it as a class, as a she. And it changes how we think about nature and our connection to nature if we see it as the she. And I think for us now as Khoikhoi people, it's about understanding, yes, the language, the colonial records that we have now, they exist. They are sometimes hidden, but we also have to interrogate how those words were written and who wrote those words. And now we can go look at those words through a Khoikhoi lens, through an African lens, through a matrilineal lens and say, but we need to honor, our language is about honoring our women, especially in this country.
Toroga, unfortunately, we have run out of time and are going to leave it there for today. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update. That was Toroga Denver from the Munanai Collective joining us on the line. Our news headlines up next.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good afternoon. I'm Cholani Tulongwepe. Making headlines, critics have warned that the historic peace and economic agreement signed in Washington by the presidents of Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, brokered by the U.S. President Donald Trump, could deepen exploitation rather than end bloodshed. 2 weeks after one of Nigeria's worst school kidnappings, parents of more than 250 missing children are desperate for news in what they see as the slow response from authorities. And finally, the British Health Service is reported to have subjected more than 250 lesbian, gay and bisexual people to electric shock aversion therapy in the 1960s and 70s. I will have details on these and other stories at 1 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective. Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
We kick off with football news. Africa's 9 qualified nations for the 2026 FIFA World Cup will discover their group stage opponents tonight as a draw for the expanded 48-team tournament takes place in Washington, D.C. The ceremony, hosted at the Kennedy Center, begins at 7 p.m. Central African Time and marks the first major milestone in the final build-up to a World Cup that will span Canada, the United States and Mexico between the 11th of June and the 18th of July 2026. For African teams, the draw represents more than just the unveiling of opponents. It signals the first step in a campaign that many believe could be the continent's most promising in decades, coming after Morocco's historic semi-final run at Qatar 2022, the first by any African nation. Africa's contingent is already confirmed. Morocco, Senegal, Algeria, Tunisia, Egypt, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, Cape Verde, and South Africa all topped their qualifying groups and secured automatic places at the tournament. Some more news from the World Cup is under the new 48-team format. The World Cup will feature 12 groups of 4 with teams drawn from 4-seeded pots based on the latest FIFA rankings. Crucially, for African sides, FIFA's geographic restrictions ensure no group may contain more than one CAF nation, removing the possibility of early all-African clashes and guaranteeing 9 separate African representatives across the groups. Morocco face injury concerns over star defender Achraf Hakimi ahead of the Africa Cup of Nations. Hakimi suffered an ankle injury in last month's Champions League clash against Bayern Munich and is still recovering. Morocco head coach Walid Regragui has confirmed Hakimi will be part of the AFCON squad, but his availability for the opening match remains in doubt. Medical staff suggests he may only be ready a few days into the tournament, leaving Morocco to wait anxiously on his fitness. Now on to the athletics. The retired marathon runner who also works as government employee in Tshwane, that is Skosana, he cannot blame athletes whose lucrative individual races over representing the country over the Olympics and the World Cups.
Some of our athletes, you can't blame them because to go to World Champs, they will measure to say to go to World Champs, better to go to run marathon that pay 200,000. But for me, the chance of the medal is not there. But it's not all about that. To go to the World Champs and Olympics is your CV, and then so that you can get opportunity to get invitation overseas. We'll never know, one day you'll be one of the marathon winner like Josiah Tungwani surprised us to win Olympics.
For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figile Lungwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Channel Africa is evolving, and so are you. Stay connected wherever you are with our brand new website and mobile app. Stream your favorite shows, catch up on African news, culture, and conversations, all at your fingertips.
Africa is just a tap away.
Your world, your stories, now on the go.
Stay connected wherever you are.
Visit channelafrica.co.za or download the Channel Africa app today. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Business news on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
With your business news this hour, I'm Matapala Mahabe, and good afternoon. A high-level discussion among senior finance and accounting leaders in Mombasa, Kenya, have highlighted new concerns about South Africa's financial skills shortage and the country's ability to retrain critical skills. The experts warned that without a stronger investment in digital and professional skills, the country's risk falling further behind global standards. With unemployment stubbornly high and economic growth under strain, calls are growing for the finance profession to help build the skills needed to strengthen South Africa's workforce. Leaders in the sector say developing technical, digital and future-focused competencies will be essential to driving economic resilience. And South Africa's Mpumalanga provincial government has officially launched the festive season tourism campaign to, among others, promote the sector, which contributes considerably to the province's GDP. The Provincial Economic Development and Tourism MEC, Jetsta Sidel, says the province is tourist destination of choice. She says international tourist arrivals have increased by 13.3% in April. Sidel says safety measures have been strengthened to ensure the safety of tourists in the province. She says the Mpumalanga Tourism and Parks Agency is working harder to improve the tourist attraction sites. And South Africa's Higher Education and Training Minister Buti Manamela says that the National Skills Fund's Connect digital system will significantly strengthen transparency in the way public funds are spent. The system was launched in Centurion, Gauteng last night. Manamela says it is part of the fund's ongoing transformation.
Hopefully into the new financial year, once the system is fully in place, once all the four phases of the system have been implemented, meaning that we now are able to track learners, we are able to integrate with Home Affairs, we're able to integrate, with payment platforms and systems, this, I believe, will go a long way in relieving the pressures around governance, around accountability, but also make the performance of the National Skills Fund even much better.
And Egypt's saving system says its technology can result in big savings on corporate electrical bills. At the heart of its product are special capacitors, which are devices which store electrical energy. Saving Systems says that when wired up, the capacitors can make electricity use more efficient, saving the customers more money and carbon emissions. Chief Executive Ahmed Al-Wakil says launching new tech products requires patience. This is the fourth of the 5-part series on technology in Africa. And U.S. President Donald Trump has hired a new architect for the construction of the $300 million or more than 5 billion rands of White House ballroom. This follows a reported disagreement with the project's original designer. The BBC's Andrew Ochieng has the details.
U.S. media say James McCreary had expressed concern about the size of the project and the ballroom overshadowing the main White House building. There have also been reports that President Trump feared Mr. McCreary's boutique firm would not be able to meet deadlines. It is unclear whether he chose to step aside voluntarily, but now he will continue working on the project as a consultant. In a statement, the White House seemed to suggest the move was not a replacement of architects, but a transition into what it called the next stage of the development.
And a look at your financial indicators. So $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,446 naira. In Botswana, it's 13 pula 18. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 48 and Zambia it's 22 kwacha 95. The BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 31, Russia at 76 rubles 56, India it's 89 rupees 98, and in China it's 7 yuan 6, while in South Africa $1 is trading at 17 rands. $1 is trading at 75 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. A look at your commodities, gold is trading at $4,217 and platinum at $1,655 per ounce, while the price of Brent crude oil is at $63.26 a barrel. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business News, I am Matapela Mahape.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Annika Longi sur Channel Africa.
Comment est-ce que les militants et sympathisants du parti Les Transformateurs ont-ils réagi face à la condamnation de Succès Masra?
La condamnation de Succès Masra ne nous a pas surpris et les militants transformateurs ont été bouleversés et indignés étant donné que le verdict est un verdict lourd, illégal, injuste et donc face à la répression dans laquelle le peuple tchadien est confronté, les militants transformateurs se sont résignés de ne pouvoir pas sortir manifester. Et donc, c'est une situation totalement absurde pour un pays. Et aujourd'hui, nous célébrons le 11 août, fête de l'indépendance. On pensait que le verdict allait être plus ou moins clément, mais le verdict est sévère.
Annika Longi, tous les dimanches sur Mix Vibration.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
It is 12:41 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. The President of the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda have signed a peace deal in Washington, witnessed by U.S. President Donald Trump. This follows an initial agreement reached between the parties in June. The signing in the U.S. Capitol in the presence of a number of African leaders marks a key moment in efforts to bring peace to the troubled eastern Congo, where fierce fighting continues to rage between Congolese armed forces and the Rwandan-backed M23 rebels. Show Bryce Peace has more.
The signing ceremony held at the newly renamed Donald J. Trump Institute for Peace in Washington, D.C., with the U.S. leader calling it a great day for Africa and the world, while lauding the long-standing foes for making this new commitment.
The compact we're signing today, which will be known as the Washington Accords, everybody sort of liked that name, formalizes the terms agreed to in June, including a permanent ceasefire, the disarmament of non-state forces, provisions for refugees to return to their homes, and justice and accountability for those who have committed illegal atrocities. Very importantly, this agreement also creates a new framework for economic prosperity. There's tremendous wealth in that beautiful earth. It's beautiful earth, but it was stained badly with blood, tremendous amounts of blood. But in the region that will support a lasting peace, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Rwanda have agreed to more closely integrate their economies with each other rather than fighting.
According to a fact sheet provided by the DRC, the agreement requires the withdrawal of all Rwandan forces from DRC territory. The threat posed by the FDLR to Rwanda would be dealt with separately, with the DRC committed to neutralizing the FDLR under the concept of operations. The agreement reaffirms the commitment of both countries to international law, excluding any form of amnesty or impunity for serious crimes. The fact sheet confirms that there are economic benefits for the DRC by pursuing an agreement with the US and with regional partners, and refers to the DRC's $24 trillion of untapped mineral reserves. Listen to DRC President Felix Tshisekedi.
The Washington agreements are not yet another document. These represent a turning point. They bring together under a coherent architecture a declaration of principles of a peace agreement and also the regional economic integration framework to provide to the peoples of the region a new perspective, a new outlook, namely to finally overcome the cycle of violence, of forced displacements, of mistrust, defiance, in order to begin a new era of friendship, cooperation, and prosperity all shared together.
Both leaders thanking President Trump and his team for creating new dynamics that fostered the agreement. Rwandan President Paul Kagame.
We have the clearest and most viable path forward that we have ever had. These accords provide everything needed to end this conflict once and for all. If this agreement falters and things do not work out as they are supposed to, the responsibility will not lie with President Trump, but with ourselves.
The UN, which has a decades-long peacekeeping mission in the region, also asked to weigh in. The Secretary-General's spokesperson, Stefan Dujarric.
This is not an agreement that we are directly involved in, but I would stress that we welcome this positive development towards peace and stability in the Great Lakes and commend the the United States' continued engagement in this regard. And I think we're also encouraged by the presence of a number of African leaders in Washington today, beyond the presence of the DRC and Rwanda, notably the African Union, its appointed mediator, President Gnassingbé of Togo, as well as the state of Qatar, to ensure that coordination and complementarity among all of the peace efforts. We've supported the AU's mediation, and we'll continue to support all efforts towards sustainable peace in the DRC and the wider region, including through our peacekeeping missions, support for the implementation of commitments made under both the Washington and Doha processes.
Pressed on whether there should have been greater consultation with the UN, Dujarric said every peace configuration was different, and that the important issue was that there was actually peace on the ground, in a region known for its complexity and where peace has been hard to secure, let alone maintain. I'm Sherman Bryce-Pease in New York.
Nobel laureate Denis Mukwege slammed a U.S.-brokered peace deal as Trump hosted Congo's Felix Tshisekedi and Rwanda's Paul Kagame, saying fighting persists and the agreement ignores victims and civil society.
It seems quite clear that this is not a peace agreement. The proof is that as I am speaking to you this morning, I received news from my native village where they are burying the dead while a peace agreement is being signed and the war continues. The M23 continues to conquer territory, so to talk about a peace agreement is simply mocking all these victims who continue to suffer in this region. So this is an agreement that is made not for us. Everything that is done for you without you is not done for you. This peace agreement for us is not inclusive. Civil society is not involved. As a result, we consider it a peace agreement that is not sustainable either.
Nous considérons que c'est un appel, c'est un accord de paix qui n'est pas durable non plus.
And that was Nobel laureate Denis Mukwege.
Annika Longi sur Channel Africa.
Comment est-ce que les militants et sympathisants du parti Les Transformateurs ont-ils réagi face à la condamnation de Succès Masra?
La condamnation de Succès Masra ne nous a pas surpris et les militants transformateurs ont été bouleversés et indignés étant donné que le verdict est un verdict lourd, illégal, injuste et donc face à la répression dans laquelle le peuple tchadien est confronté, les militants transformateurs se sont résignés de ne pouvoir pas sortir manifester. Et donc, c'est une situation totalement absurde pour un pays. Et aujourd'hui, nous célébrons le 11 août, fête de l'indépendance. On pensait que le verdict allait être plus ou moins clément, mais le verdict est sévère.
Annika Longi, tous les dimanches sur Mix Vibration.
Africa Update, your daily dose of African insights with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Well, it is that time of the day where we say happy Friday and a good afternoon to Matseko Musito of The Upside. How are you today?
I am good. And because it's Friday, we get
Yeah.
excited every Friday.
Mhm.
It's a musical Friday. We're going to be catching up with a twin duo by the name of Fine. Australian-born, South African as residents, and they're going to bring us some music. So we're going to check out, their work around Afro tech, and then also an interesting conversation around digital platforms, the growth of news, entertainment, and everyday discussions. But are we verifying our information, or is it verified? And speaking of verified, we're going to be speaking to Kumo Makiti, who is founder and chief executive officer of Verified. That is a platform that is designed to tackle the growing challenge of AI-driven misinformation around the world.
Interesting one. Well, something to look forward to. It is Friday, and there's going to be a lot of dancing, I guess. Masako will be dancing, so you better stay tuned. And we continue on Africa Update. A lot still coming up as it is 12:51 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa.
Your life, your rhythm, your Africa. Channel Africa. Find it for free on Google Play and the Apple App Store.
Nations experts estimate that hundreds of protesters were killed during the brutal election crackdown. The U.S. State Department also cited ongoing repression of religious freedom and free speech as factors in the reassessment of bilateral relations. Nick Harper reports from Washington.
The State Department says the US has enjoyed a long-standing partnership with Tanzania, but that may now be about to change. In a statement, it noted that recent actions by the country's government had raised grave concerns in Washington, with the State Department calling into question the direction and the reliability of those leading the Tanzanian government. It went on to call out the ongoing repression of religious freedom and free speech, the presence of persistent obstacles to US investment, and disturbing violence against civilians surrounding the October 29th elections. Videos show police and armed men shooting dead protesters, many of them unarmed, after the government stopped opposition politicians from running in the general election. Tanzanian President Samia Suluhu Hassan was re-elected, with the government claiming she received 98% of the vote. The US says the government has put American citizens, tourists, and US interests at risk, and as a result, Washington is now comprehensively reviewing its relationship with Tanzania. The bottom line, the US says, Tanzanians' actions will determine the future bilateral relationship. The US ultimatum came on the same day that Washington welcomed multiple African leaders to champion strong relations with other countries on the continent. President Donald Trump hosted the presidents of Rwanda and the DRC for the signing of a peace deal between those two nations. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio welcomed Kenya's President William Ruto to sign what Rubio described as a groundbreaking agreement. It'll see the US provide roughly $1.6 billion to help Kenya's health system as part of a new America First global health strategy, which will also see Nairobi contributing to its own health spending in return. Harper, Washington.
South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has called for dialogue and men's indabas across the country to fight against gender-based violence and femicide. Ramaphosa appealed to all men to get off the sidelines. The president says the abuse of women and children impugns on the dignity of men. He delivered a keynote address at the Men's Indaba in Bloemfontein, held under the theme Litsema, Men, Women, Boys and Girls Working Together to End GBVF, which gathered over 4,000 men under one roof to talk about solutions. Ishmael Mudiba has more.
Men of all ages and races gathered under one roof to confront the elephant in the roof. Their mantra is, "Not in my name." Thousands of participants came together to develop a collective society-wide response rooted in unity and shared responsibility. President Cyril Ramaphosa says it is time for men to stop standing on the sidelines. Ramaphosa called for a more comprehensive, prevention-focused approach that involves all of society. He says the Indaba is a clear indication that the fight against GBVF cannot be outsourced to women who are victims.
So this men's Indaba is a clear statement that we are no longer outsourcing the fight against gender-based violence and femicide to women who are the victims. We know that change must begin with us. Ke rona ba tlameileng hore re bue ka gender-based violence. Ke rona ba tlameile hore re dule re bua ka yona, so that we must send the message very clearly. The reason why we have said it's a national disaster is because we want government, all of government, to be engaged in a number of ways to try to curb gender-based violence.
The convener of the Free State non-government organization named Buang Banna, Archie Piniti, says men must find solution to the current challenges.
So today we are here. I'm one of the speakers. My focus is on all the causes and the diagnosis that we have made to the president and the country at large. And we are now happy that our province and the national government, they've bought to what we have been preaching, saying, let this thing be a collaborative effort in terms of not an individual, but every stakeholder in the country, let them come together. Here we are today.
Men attending the Indaba at Limo Green Park in Bloemfontein say the solution to the gender-based violence in the country lies in men committing to protecting women and children. Some of the men had this to say.
So for us as fathers, as men, we want to know exactly what can we change as men, making sure that we protect our women, our children, and everybody else, and make this country safe.
I'm grateful for this day today, because now what is happening now, it's this thing of showing the man, the husband, so that the ladies and the children are important to us and are important to South Africa at large. We mustn't abuse them, we mustn't abuse them. We must protect them all the time. When you see them, you must take care like your child or children. When you see a lady, you must take care like your wife.
Free State Premier Makwin Lutsuha Matai says the provincial government plans to have district indabas and visits to schools next year. Lutsuha Matai explains.
We're also planning to have an indaba of traditional healers and traditional leaders so that they can be able to assist us. As I always indicate, that there are issues of culture where people are being abused in the name of culture, where GBV is taking place in the name of culture. So moving from this one now, we're going to tap into that, where we're going to engage traditional leaders, traditional healers, visiting schools. Of course, education has already started, going to schools, trying to talk to boys and girls. So we'll be moving district by district going forward.
As part of the ongoing efforts to act against sexual crime, the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development has opened a sexual offence court in Botshabelo. I am Ishmael Mudiba in Bloemfontein.
And that's how we wrap Africa Update today and for the week. It's been a great week and a great day. Continue with us on all our social media platforms. And let's do this again on Monday. Be safe. Bye-bye.